Committee reports. First item on the list, December 4th, 2019, Community Safety and Crime Prevention Committee meeting minutes for receipt. Can I have a motion to adopt those minutes? Councillor Rice. Seconded, Councillor Schwarzenberger. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2 is December 9th, 2019, Committee of the Whole meeting minutes for receipt. Can I get a Councillor Bentamina? Second, Councillor Mass. Discussion. Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, December 17th, 2019, Community Safety and Crime Prevention Committee meeting minutes for receipt. Can I get a mover for those? Councillor Rice. Second, Councillor Bentamina. That's an entrance. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And item 4, January 8th, 2020, Airport Advisory Committee meeting minutes for receipt. And does the resolution go as far as that as well?
Yes.
Together or two separate items?
It can be an endorse.
And endorse the resolution ACC-04-2020 that the committee recommend to council to support Airport's British Columbia Air Access Program grant application for the North End runway extension. I will refer to the CEO for some comments on that.
Thank you, Your Worship. We had a meeting on January 8th, and there's an application going forward where you can get 75% funding towards a project, and so it's being suggested that a project be put in for the extension of the runway for an additional 100 feet, and it's at a price of about $74,800, and 75% of that would be through the funding, be provided through funding, and most of the costs that we would cover would be with regards to the fill. That's quite a bit of it that's being covered, and we have that fill already, so there's not a large burden to the actual town with regards to costing of having this extension completed. So we have got the application prepared, and will require a resolution from council that has to go with that as well. I do believe it's coming after you receive these minutes.
Does anybody have any comments? I just had one question. I was just going to ask what the reasoning is for extending the runway. It's good to understand that.
Currently, right now, they've changed some of the perimeters around what kind of planes can come in, so this will allow larger airplanes to use our runway.
Just to follow up on that, as an example, the owner of Hester Creek comes down every week, and he purchased a new airplane on the basis of that it could land at a runway. After he purchased it, the rules are changed, and now he has to land in Penticton and commute down to Oliver. But by adding on another 100 feet, that's not to say the rules wouldn't change back again, but by adding on the runway, it would allow that airplane and others to make better use of our airport.
So by extending the runway, we're maintaining our ability to land the planes that land today, tomorrow.
And probably more planes.
And more planes.
in the future. Okay.
And I would just add, if I may, that I understood from the meeting that this has been on the wish or want list for a really long time, and so it makes sense to take advantage of the opportunity with the grant as that progress. So I'll move the recommendation.
With the recommendation that the minutes of January 2020 Advisory Committee meeting be received, and that staff be directed to submit an application under the Ministry of Transportation Infrastructure British Columbia Air Access Program to provide 75% funding access for extending the airport one day to an estimated cost of $748. Now a seconder? Second, Councillor Manis. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving to water matters. December 2019 water quality report. I'll refer to the CEO
Thank you, Your Worship. It's a quick little report. It is in the winter mode. Currently right now, they've done some work in the rural system on Miller Road pump house installation at the new hydro cell. And there was a few items within the in-town. The maximum temperatures are a little bit higher than what has been the normal temperatures from 1981 to 2010. And our precipitation, we ended up having more rain in December than we did snow. And it's a little bit lower than what we had before. Our use for December from 2018 is up by 4% on water consumption for domestic water. And but overall, the domestic groundwater consumption is a little bit less than what we've consumed on the 7-year average. So the report is in front of council for receipt.
Any questions? Can I get a mover to receive the water quality report? Councillor Machial, second by Councillor Scoot. Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Anything to report, Councillor Machial?
Not really, Your Worship, just agenda review with you on Wednesday and today.
Councillor Scoot. Thank you. And now we'll move to delegations. We've got the Food Secure Oliver business case presentation and the Cassian co-chair.
And all else fails usually.
Sorry, just getting the clicker oriented here. Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Today, the Food Action Advisory Committee will make business case recommendations for continued funding of the Food Action Coordinator position.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. The Town of Oliver has provided leadership and matched grant funding for a Community Food Action Initiative project to commission the Food Secure Oliver Plan to address local food insecurity. As a result, the Food Secure Oliver Plan was commissioned. Food Secure Oliver focuses on objectives and strategies that can be addressed at the municipal and community level, while also including strategies and ideas advocating for healthy living. Food Secure Oliver was created to develop proactive approaches for increasing community food security, and it is a community-driven plan that brings together research and engagement outcomes to form a comprehensive framework. The framework includes a vision, goals, objectives, strategies, and ideas for plan implementation. The plan is intended to guide community planning for increased food security over a course of 10 years. The town of Oliver was recognized by the Southern Interior Local Government Association for the award-winning Food Secure Oliver Plan. Residents in Oliver face many challenges to food security. Through engagement initiatives, it has been identified that residents commonly face barriers to proper living, such as being able to buy healthy food and to gain access to healthy food sources. Regional data suggests that residents experience diet-related illnesses and that annual household incomes are lower, but housing costs are higher in Oliver when compared to provincial averages. These conditions exist despite the town being in a highly productive agricultural area in an affluent region of the country. The vision for Food Secure Oliver is that healthy, locally sourced food is available to all and is at the heart of a diverse community culture and local economy. The 5 primary goals of the Food Secure Oliver Plan are to create a community food culture, strengthen the local food and community economy, increase dignified access to healthy and safe food, and to increase and build upon local capacity by advancing community food security. The Food Secure Oliver Plan has been recognized and integrated into the official community plan. Key sections of the OCP that explicitly reference the plan are Section 12, Agriculture and Food Systems, and Section 20, Health, Wellbeing, and Community Development. The OCP recognizes the importance of the Food Secure Oliver Plan as it encourages education and awareness of food systems and food security, and that a healthy community is a thriving and prosperous community. The Food Secure Plan also supports priorities identified in the town's 2018 to 2022 strategic plan, as Food Secure Oliver contributes to a more affordable and more comfortable community and a safe and walkable community with social services available for residents. The Edible Trail creates a more walkable community that provides free access to seasonal foods while encouraging local economic development by supporting the business partnerships along the trail. Food Secure Oliver supports goals identified in the Downtown Oliver Action Plan, and members of the Food Action Advisory Committee have also sat on the Downtown Revitalization Committee, as the two plans have overarching goals and objectives. Food Secure Oliver and the Edible Trail bring value to Oliver's downtown by encouraging people to walk Main Street, combining foot traffic and healthy food while spotlighting Oliver's many businesses. The Community Capacity Building Tool is a planning tool to help understand how community capacity is affected in health promotion projects. At the start of the project in 2016, information and data from the Food Secure project were entered into the tool and again reevaluated in 2019. By evaluating the graph and the parameters placed in the tool, it is clear that community capacity is significantly increasing in the categories of leadership, external supports, skills, and knowledge. There's still valuable work to be undertaken in the remaining fields to push the projects and initiatives from on the road or nearly there to we're there. Continuing to support Food Secure Oliver and the Food Action Coordinator position will support local capacity through health promotion. The projects and programs that have built local capacity and have contributed to a more resilient and healthy community should be celebrated, but there's still work to be accomplished that is identified in the plan. The Downtown Oliver Action Plan identifies that there is currently a lack of capacity building agencies operating in Oliver. Food Secure Oliver is shown to contribute to local capacity and can be utilized as a player in advancing objectives in the plan. Food Secure Oliver has built many local partnerships over the past 3 years. These partnerships include the Food Bank, Interior Health, Parks and Rec, the elementary schools and high school, Oliver Healthy Living Coalition, Women of Oliver for Women, Desert Sun Counseling, businesses along the Edible Trail, committees including the Affordable Housing Committee and Downtown Revitalization Committee, and has worked at the Okanagan Correctional Center to have the Harvest Hut bills. Food Secure Oliver has also worked closely with other communities in BC and builds upon their food action successes, including Trail, Revelstoke, and Enderby. The Food Secure Oliver Plan has enabling actions and goals and strategies to help with overall plan implementation. Two of the key enabling strategies have already been accomplished, which is to establish an Oliver and Area C Food Committee to oversee and engage in the sustainable implementation of the plan. The second is to establish a Community Development Coordinator position to support action planning and implementation. The Development Coordinator took the form of the Food Action Coordinator, who has been working to implement the key objectives and strategies defined by the Food Secure Plan. The Harvest Hut was officially opened in 2019 and evolved from a temporary tent on Main Street to a more permanent location at the Kinston Spray Park, and is the blue building on the top of the slide. Volunteer staffing the Harvest Hut had over 1,300 visitors in 2019 and gave out over 2,000 pounds of fresh, quality food and produce. Visitors to the Harvest Hut stated that the food was to mainly feed adults and senior citizens. Over 300 plants were given out, which when planted and tended empowers locals to grow food and provide for themselves. The Edible Trail was another success of 2019. The trail traded ornamental plants for edible foods on Main Street, which included various herb and vegetable plants. It is important to note that the community supported this initiative by donating all the necessary plants to get the trail up and running. By utilizing existing planter boxes in front of businesses on Main Street and donated seedlings, it was an easy transition that encouraged locals and tourists to walk Main Street in search of fresh additions to dinner. Increasing pedestrian traffic on Main Street encourages local economic development and objectives in the Downtown Oliver Action Plan by highlighting local businesses and increasing their visibility. Through the Food Action Coordinator position, various grant and program opportunities are identified and shared with relevant local community groups that may be able to harness new funding sources or initiatives. The grant and program opportunities shared by the coordinator typically benefit youth and senior citizen initiatives. There are 8 big moves identified in the plan that include action areas that have been assessed as having a high priority, meaning a high impact, urgency, or measurability, but may be low in readiness and include medium to high costs. Some of the 8 big moves have been implemented or are in the process of implementation thanks to the work of the Food Action Coordinator. Of the 8 big moves, there are 7 that require further attention. A central food hub has already been established in the form of the Harvest Hut. This is currently a seasonal central food hub, but can be expanded beyond the growing season with further action. There are 6 key objectives that support the overarching goals and visions of the Food Secure Oliver Plan. Many of these objectives are currently underway and are also reliant upon one another. Each of the objectives have their own unique strategies and ideas identified in the plan that will assist with implementation and ensure success over the coming years. There are a total of 19 strategies and 58 ideas that support the 6 objectives and guide the Food Action Coordinator in implementing the plan. While the committee can provide guidance in moving the ideas, strategies, and objectives forward, the coordinator is responsible for action these items. There are several grants that can be leveraged to help support the implementation of the plan. Most grants require that there is a project coordinator with dedicated funding to implement the actions or requirements of the grant opportunity. Grant programs recognize that a coordinator is required to implement the actions and to monitor and report on project progress. Having a coordinator dedicated to seeking out and applying for grants on behalf of the town and community also serves to increase local capacity. There are 3 primary grants that can be pursued that will help continue the plan. There's the Interior Health Community Food Action Initiative Fund that has already been successfully utilized from 2016 to 2019 and can be applied for again. There's also the Community Food Center Food Fit and Community Food Centers Market Greens funding sources that also bring large value to the community. The Interior Health Grant and the 2 Community Food Centers grants all require a coordinator with proof of dedicated funding sources as part of the grant application. Overall, there have been 30 grants identified that can be leveraged by Food Secure Oliver to continue plan implementation, and many of these require a dedicated coordinator for application, implementation, and monitoring. The town of Oliver has been a primary source of support for Food Secure Oliver. From 2016 to present, the town has provided meeting space, staff time, and $15,000 annually to develop objectives in the plan and to help the Food Action Coordinator position. One of the key enabling actions of the plan is to explore and establish a long-term, sustainable funding model for plan implementation and monitoring, including strategic and innovative funding partnerships. There has been funding support from the town, and continued support is needed for the seeds of the plan to grow and to enable development of a long-term sustainable funding model. The plan is 2 years into the 10-year program. In order to keep this momentum going, sustainable funding is necessary to retain the work of the Food Action Coordinator. The coordinator plays a critical role in implementing the goals and objectives of the Food Secure Oliver plan and to keep the momentum of the program's continued success going. Food Secure Oliver contributes to a more healthy and vibrant community that values dignified access to nutritious food. Food Secure Oliver supports multiple components of the OCP, the 2018 to 2022 strategic plan, and the Downtown Oliver Action Plan. As the long list of partnerships outlined, many community groups have recognized the importance of food security and the contributions of the Food Action Coordinator. The coordinator is a key component in keeping contact between various community groups, helping them identify and apply for grants, and linking groups with capacity increasing programs. There are many grants contingent on stable funding sources, and as of 2020, there is no longer a funding source to implement the Food Secure Oliver plan. The committee recognizes the contributions from the town of Oliver over the past 3 years and looks to build upon this narrative. The Food Action Advisory Committee is requesting the council to consider including a continued 3-year commitment of $15,000 per year to implement the Food Action Plan in their 2020 to 2023 budget. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Casey. Any comments, questions, Council? Councillor Schwartzberger.
Thank you, David. I'll just say it was a really good PowerPoint presentation. Every time I thought I had a question, you answered it on the next slide. So, well done, and thank you for that.
I have a question. The $15,000 each year, does that fund the coordinator in its entirety, or is there additional grants that would need to fund that coordinator position?
With the stable source of funding, we can then apply for grants that are contingent on that funding. So with that $15,000, in the past, we worked with the Interior Health Grant to double the $15,000 from the town, creating a $30,000 pot that could fund that position. There are also additional grants that can be leveraged. Most of them require a stable source of funding.
So how much does the coordinator position need in funding? Like if we were to approve $15,000, how much more do you need on top of that in grant money to be able to make that position viable for a year annually, I guess? Yeah, so for the past 3 years, we had $30,000 per year that funded the coordinator position in a part-time capacity.
Thank you, Your Worship. That kind of dovetails with when you were in front of us last year, you talked about funding for this program. One of the key elements was that you were going to work on getting longer-term funding. How many grants have you applied for?
Can I defer to?
We successfully got 3 small grants this year. So the BC Healthy Communities, which helped cover some of the coordinator hours. We got the community small grant to fund the harvest hut. We got interior savings as well, which funded the harvest hut for the full summer. And then we've applied for the single year and multi-year, no, just the single year interior health as well, which we were not successful this year. And we applied for 2 other grants, $8,500 and one that was about $8,500 as well, that we were not successful in because we could not prove that we had the match funding for next year.
So if you got the 15,000 and none of your other grants were to come through, where does that leave you?
We're fairly confident in the interior health grant. We were able to leverage that for the past 3 years, but it did have a 3-year shelf life on it. So if we can provide stable funding source, which we're requesting tonight, then we should be able to successfully reapply to the interior health grant.
But if that isn't successful, where does that leave you?
Am I allowed to answer?
Mm-hmm.
So on the, we identified around 30 grants that Food Action could apply for. So many of these we didn't apply for this past year because we had no guarantee of any match funding moving forward. So if you approved this funding, then starting March, we could start applying for these additional grants. And if you support a 3-year funding, then we would be able to say we have this funding for the next 3 years. That would be enough to get us these additional grants. And we've identified roughly 30 that we can apply for. For example, the community food centers to bring in $70,000 to launch a market and fund a position to coordinate that market. Then the idea with all the food action initiatives is that somebody will, community groups take that over where it grows and it's building its own capacity. So we believe we definitely could get additional grants. And the small grants that we've got in the past, all of those we would be able to get again.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation, and you got through it just in time, I think. I support the food action, I had to write it down because I never remember what it's called, but the Food Secure Oliver Plan, as well as the funding request. I think, as David pointed out a couple of times in there, support for the work that's being done by the Food Action Advisory Committee and the coordinator are works that are embedded into our OCP, our strategic plan, and our downtown action plan. So without the work of the coordinator, I'm sure they would be getting done, but maybe at a slower pace. So, as he also pointed out, we've been able to knock off some of the quick wins, and they've been very well received by the community, like the harvest hut and the edible pathways. They've also helped, I believe, to break down barriers in our community and kind of bring people together. But we do need, I think, in my opinion, to commit further in order to work on some of the longer term goals. So I forget what the page was called in there, but the Big 8 or something. Yeah, the Big 8 moves. So those, for example, we need to show the commitment that we have to the plan in order for some of these ideas that have been identified to be worked on. And those would help to really sort of begin to tackle food insecurity in more of a meaningful way for our community and for our vulnerable population. So, like I said, I support the funding request, and I don't know if we need a motion or if we just want to move it along to budget.
If you did want to consider this, you would probably want to put forward a motion to forward it on to budget discussions.
There's a handy motion right here. So I would like to move that the Food Secure Oliver proposal to include funding for an additional 3 years at $15,000 each year from the 2020 to 2023 general budget discussions happen, I guess.
I'll second. Any further discussion, comments, questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Our second delegation, Alberta Tourism Association, have a presentation on the municipal and regional district tax program. Right. Is it Ian?
This is
Our tourism manager.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Chris. Thank you for making time on such short notice as well. Appreciate that. We come to you today with more of an exploratory sort of look at some options. I know they've been presented previously. So you've got your 1970s slideshow in front of you right now. Kind of sort of overviews basically what the MRDT is. The MRDT, the municipal regional district tax, has been discussed at different levels in different communities throughout British Columbia. We look at it as definitely an opportunity for us to access some funding. There's a 2% and a 3% avenue to be researched, to be looked at. This is obviously one of the priorities because it is being accessed right now currently by some of our partners in the south, over in the Kootenays, and out on the coast. This provides opportunities for effective tourism marketing, programs for projects, for events, for different things we'd like to do here in the community to bring people back into Oliver and let them see what the town has to offer. The reason why I'm coming to you today as well is because one of the opportunities within this taxation, if you want to call it that, is that it has an opportunity for the affordable housing implement. And the affordable housing, the reason why it's kind of important to kind of look at it right now is the fact that this process itself takes about 9 months before it goes in place. So the whole process of review is a 9-month period. So ideally, we want to get the process rolling, get it going, because that way it can affect us for spring of 2021 and give us a little bit more of an opportunity going in so we don't miss the season for 2021, the funding. So the affordable housing aspect, the reason why I look at it with the city is that it also provides an opportunity for the city with housing plans, affordable housing plans that you may have going or maybe be looking at. So that allows us to kind of work together to access that funding going forward. If the way the wording is in the application is that if we proceed now with the 3% and we don't look at affordable housing, then we can't go backwards once the application's in. So we miss that opportunity. So like I said, there's a 9-month period and then there's a 3-month period before it's actually accessible. So it will take 1 year complete once the application process is put in place. So part of that, so I've said right here with the document, it sort of outlines what the MRDT is. Sort of a basic overview along with the information we sent in advance. Gives you an idea about what it does for tourism, what it does for the city, for the town, what it does for as far as what we need as far as criteria to make it happen. One of the examples I pulled, there was that affordable housing unit that's being put in place, I believe for the spring of this year. That's not to say that's the opportunity now because it's already in place, but if there's other opportunities going forward, it's a chance to actually utilize those funds to help out the town go forward with that process. There's a couple things with that we're looking at, like I said, once again, to get the process going, is one, in order to apply for this funding, we would need a letter from the town designating us, Oliver Tourism Association, as the eligible entity for accessing and dealing with the funds directly with Destination BC. So Destination BC are the ones that access the funding, help out with the funding, and also when we put the application in, Destination BC will also help manage the application to make sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed to help work with us and make this happen. So we work with them, then it's administered back through Destination BC and then back through us. So the point is we would need a letter from the town as an eligible entity to start the process, also from RDOS and from the stakeholders. What this also does too is give us an opportunity to meet with all the stakeholders, all the accommodations, to let them know and sort of do a Q&A to answer questions as far as, what the questions or concerns they might have when you put the word tax out there, what that means, and where the money goes to, how it's administered, programs that are put in place as a result of the funding. So those are the things we're trying to look at, and we've got meetings set up right now currently with the Soyuz in the south. Part of the process right now, like I said, we're meeting with all the accommodations, putting that in place. So in the next couple of weeks, we'll have a presentation for the accommodations and get that going. So it kind of brings everybody together to answer those questions. So that's everything in a nutshell, basically.
I had one question.
Absolutely.
My understanding was that in order to apply for this, that you're not able to just say affordable housing, you actually have to identify a specific project or a piece of land, like an understanding that a piece of land or purchasing a piece of land for affordable housing would also qualify. Is that, maybe you can just.
Absolutely. There's many different, sort of a lot of different wording within the application itself, but that is part of it. Part of it says that you can actually designate a property or a place based on like staff housing as well, if there's a staff housing opportunity, because the idea is to bring people back into the town and make it affordable and accessible to work here as well for the tourism community and it's for people in general. So anything that applies under that mandate allows you the opportunity to access the funding that way. So there's a bunch of verbiage in there, but absolutely. So if you have plans in the process or something that's down the road, that applies, yes.
Councillor Benjamin?
Thanks. What I didn't quite understand, can you apply for the 3% funding whether or not you're going to designate it into affordable housing, or does that open like access to extra money?
No, absolutely. This is initially the belief, like when through the process, was that the 3% was contingent on affordable housing. But that's not necessarily the case. The case is that once you do, you can still apply for 3% without the affordable housing, but the idea is that once you do apply for it, if you go forward with the application and affordable housing is not part of it, the process, then you can't go work backwards and then apply for affordable housing as part of the grant or part of the funding afterwards. So
Got it.
you can't move backwards, yeah.
So, I have a follow-up, but I'll have to find it in here.
Okay. Councillor Worship first.
Thank you, Worship. Ian, I know that, you know, you can pick a piece of property that you want to purchase, or you can reduce rents on an existing affordable housing. You can use those funds to reduce the rents on an existing property. Can you change partway through? Can you assist for a while and then say, gee, we need another affordable housing project, and switch your funds to acquiring property partway through, or once you've set it up, is it cast in stone?
Councillor, what I've seen so far through the application is that once you've put in process, if you do decide to change it or alter how you want to apply for or utilize those funds, then you do have to reapply, or there has to be a whole process to go back into it. So it's not just we decided to change into this position, it's automatically going back through the whole process again, it sounds like.
Can I interject? Sorry. What we have discovered, of Judy from OTA as well, what we've discovered is that Ian's talking to the process, you're talking about the fund dispersal. If we don't have the affordable housing in the application, we cannot use the funds for affordable housing. Once that is in the application, yes, we can disperse them according to the first year strategic plan. The second year can be altered. So maybe your first year is to purchase property, your second year that didn't work out, or you're changing the plan somewhat. As long as affordable housing is listed in the application. Without listing it in the application, and we get 3%, we cannot use the funds to apply to affordable housing at all, without reapplying for a whole other new process. So that's why this is important. We're hopeful that you will take this as an opportunity with us, and someone can work with us on this process. We have a very tight deadline. We want to get this in.
Thank you, Worship. So I'm in favor of using MRDT funds for affordable housing. I guess my concern is how specific does our plan need to be by the time you make your application? Can you just say affordable housing and then we figure it out before you get the funds? Or do we need, because we have an affordable housing aspect of our strategic plan, but we don't have an affordable housing plan per se.
I think it can be worked out. The idea is, I think that especially going forward, what we'd like to do is, like a bulk of the application, it's an 85-page document, but the bulk of the application is going through the 5-year strategic plan of tourism itself as well. So ideally, like to work with, ideally with a councillor that can join us for like a subcommittee throughout, like, and it'd be ideally like daytime as well, so we're not trying to infringe on somebody's nighttime at this point either, but somebody who could come in like once a week on a subcommittee, just to kind of work through the city side, so the communication is open, and we can look at what the process is gonna be in case there are some alterations, or if there are things that you wanna change or work on the plan going forward for the city. So we can look at that, but ideally we wanna work together that process. The bulk of the process, or bulk of the application, relies on tourism to work through. But for that section, it'd be ideal to have a councillor work with us, if possible.
Councillor Matz.
Thank you, Your Worship. I certainly appreciate that you're including the town in this, given that you do have the opportunity to apply without the affordable housing aspect. I think it's very good that you're saying, yes, we want that to be part of our, and we certainly don't want to squander the opportunity to take advantage of it. I would certainly be willing to work with you, and I don't know if other councillors would want to step up as well, for whatever amount to make this go forward, because I think there's some real positive aspects to it, and I think we should support it anyway.
CEO.
Thank you, Your Worship. I did want to bring to council's attention that we did have an affordable housing strategy prepared for the town of Alder back in November of 2009. I do believe I provided everybody with a copy of it at some point in time in the last year. However, being that it's from 2009, it probably needs to have a look at it. This was never adopted by prior councils, it was just received for information. So it is probably something that if it had a little bit of refresh, because we have done the assessment for housing needs also has been completed, so we could probably get this refreshed quite easily to be able to support the application.
Could we get copies of that both forwarded again?
Certainly, I can do that for you.
Thank you.
Councillor Red.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, and I'm backtracking just a bit through what's been said. So, to begin, if I heard right, I think that you're hopeful that council will support including affordable housing in the application. That's the goal. Okay.
Sure.
So then, is a part of, I haven't seen your strategic plan, so is a part of the Tourism Association's strategic plan at all focused on housing for like tourism related workforce and that sort of thing? Or are you hoping that the towns can take on that portion and run with it?
As a board, we are still working on our own portion of the 5-year strategic plan. That's where we would like the councillor, if it's Dave, that's going to work with us to work with us further and to help. It's a partnership, and we need to incorporate that. And as we discovered in all of our research, that this can be used for tourism housing to bring people so they have a place to live when they come and work here in our peak season and stuff. So so that is important to us, of course.
Good.
Very much a blank page right now.
And we are as well.
Yeah.
Okay, well, and then I guess, so I didn't see this before tonight, I don't know if I missed it or something, but I've read over this, one of the pages in here a couple of times, and I just don't I'm not sure if you can just not use the money towards affordable housing for a few years and report once you do, or if it looks like annual reporting on what you spend towards affordable housing means that you're expected to move on something housing related now.
The interesting thing we have so far is if you do proceed with the affordable housing aspect of the application, then there is a reporting process, just the financial side of it, on a yearly basis. Absolutely. But the funding itself goes for a 5-year period, and then it has to be renewed after a 5-year period and continue to be used every 5 years, but it's a 5-year period. But there is a financial aspect to it where it's just so I included a couple like the appendix there too, with just kind of a general overview of what the requirements are for reporting in general for the financial side. But yeah, there's a general reporting to it.
And it could be that you put that money in a bank account while you waiting to have enough to do something.
Could be in trust, could be.
Okay, thank you.
Can you just sort of go through your timeline, so we have an idea when?
Absolutely. So ideally what we're trying to do is work through this application. Like I said, maybe with the subcommittee too, is work on a weekly basis to take away at every aspect of the application through the process, the strategic plan, everything else. We ideally want to have this in place by mid-March, like already into Destination BC for review, and then completed because we have our AGM as well on the 2nd of April. So we want to also make sure that all the stakeholders are aware of the progression of the plan, how things are going, and then review the strategy with them at the same time. But in conjunction with that, we're also working with the stakeholders and the accommodations providers throughout the course of this process. So it's not just going to be, here it is, it's going to be a process along the way. But because it is such a time-consuming process, and the idea, I said earlier about having it in place for the spring of next year, because it is that 1 year basically. So it's important that we don't miss a season and an opportunity for both parties.
So our goal deadline is to have the application in and completed by the 15th of
March.
Fine-tuned so that it's firmly in before the 15th of April to the government. The government will then take 9 months, and then it's a 3-month. The government then takes 3 months after it's been approved. After that 9-month period is up, it's 3 months before it's implemented. So that's key to be implemented for April of 2021 to get that 2021 season. So it gives us a very short window, and there's several of us from the OTA board that are, we're committed to working our cushies off to get this in and done. So we're asking the town for the same commitment if we're going to put affordable housing into it.
That's what I was gonna ask, do we need a motion or anything like that, or just?
Councillor?
I'll make the motion that council support the application of the Oliver Tourism Association to get the municipal regional district tax in place, and that staff be directed to provide letters accordingly.
Thank you very much.
I'll second that.
And we can, okay, we've got the motion on the table, seconded, so we'll also have a discussion at our next committee of the whole meeting to identify somebody on council to get part of the subcommittee.
Sure.
That's a couple weeks from now, so you're okay with that kind of time?
We'll work with it.
We'll work with it.
Okay.
We can bug Dave in the meantime.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Did we vote on it?
Yes.
That's carried.
I was thinking, yeah, voted yes. Those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Moving to business, what do we got here? Naming policy, outdoor public space. Ask the corporate officer to go through her report.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report before council this evening is a new policy, a naming policy for outdoor public spaces. In May 2019, Mr. McKenna from the Oliver Legion appeared as a delegation before council, requesting consideration to name the new park on Fairview Road adjacent to the Coast Hotel as Veterans Park. As part of his request, he sought council's consideration to move the cenotaph that is currently located on the town hall parcel to this new park that's currently under development. Additionally, Mr. Pat Hampson wrote council in support of Mr. McKenna's request to have the new park adjacent to the Coast Hotel designated as Veterans Park and moving the cenotaph in recognition of area of entrance and respect to concerns of safety during Remembrance Day services adjacent to the highway. The Director of Operations took a look at the cenotaph and advises that not knowing how the cenotaph was constructed or installed at Town Hall could create significant challenges in coordinating a movement to another location. It could be quite high risk with the potential that the cenotaph could be damaged or just simply collapse. Council may want to consider placement of a new cenotaph in future developments at Station Street, potentially to place near Veterans Avenue, which could be appropriate. To provide council with a criteria and process for naming outdoor public spaces in the town of Oliver, the new policy provides provisions for your consideration. The guidelines for naming respect the natural environment and the broader community interest in the outdoor public space. Reviewing naming criteria in the Okanagan Valley and other municipalities, they're very similar to what's presented to council this evening. Council has approved the development plans for the new park along Fairview that will represent or recognize the significance of the salmon run and the harvest by the First Nations peoples of the Okanagan Nation. Although a new name for the park hasn't been considered or deliberated by council, we may want to have some discussion with Okanagan Indian Band or Okanagan Nation Alliance, who brought forward the salmon run significance to council's attention, and it may be appropriate to have some discussion with them on the cultural recognition of the salmon run and harvest. There are the policy, looking at the policy, as I said, it's to establish criteria for naming outdoor public spaces, and the principles, as I said, values our natural and cultural heritage of our outdoor public spaces. The definition for our outdoor public spaces are green spaces such as parks, public squares, or space used for a community gathering, beaches and trails. The naming criteria would speak to following the names of adjacent streets that have been approved and established by Oliver Council. Where an adjacent street name has already been used, and if the space is of a higher profile in nature, the name could be chosen to describe the neighborhood or the name of a community sector or geographical feature or a natural area. Where the adjacent street name or the neighborhood and community sector or unique geographical feature has already been used, consideration could be done to honoring individuals in the community.
Consideration is a concept of English common law.
Google's talking to me too. As long as there is a significant community contribution by the individual. Recognition of names commemorating a historic event or an event of cultural significance can be considered. If a space has already been named, it cannot be renamed, or cannot be named after an individual living or dead, unless the proponent of the name change demonstrates a number of items. Honoring individuals by naming outdoor space features or sections to be considered if the individual has significantly contributed to the community, such as prominent pioneers or settlers, Oliver residents who have achieved provincial or federal prominence or acclaim in fields such as sports, education, politics, medicine, or residents who have made a major contribution or sacrifice to the welfare of the community or Canada. Outdoor public spaces will not ordinarily be named after social, ethnic, religious causes or groups unless authorized by council. So the petition before council this evening, you have some options to adopt as presented. You could refer back to staff for some additional changes or not to adopt a naming policy at this time. And I have the recommendation before council, and I can take any questions.
Questions, comments, council?
I'll move the recommendation.
Second. Yeah, I read through the policy, there was nothing that jumped out at me, and the council has any naming recommendations will come through council at the end of the day as well, so I have no problem with that. Councilor Mattis?
If I read it correctly, on the basis of this policy, we would end up with something for that park like Okanagan River Park or Station Street Park or Fairview Road Park, if I'm reading this correctly. Something along those lines, or something else. Or,
Yeah.
well, not anything. Okay.
I'll call the question then. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2, proclamation policy. Refer to the corporate officer.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report before council this evening is to introduce a new proclamation policy. As a little bit of a background, at the last meeting, committee of the whole, council directed staff to bring forward a new proclamation policy. We didn't really have a policy, but it was rescinded at the last meeting. It was really just a resolution that no proclamations be issued from the town of Oliver for any events. Looking back into the 90s, I couldn't see or find a staff report that spoke to why the resolution occurred, but historically municipal councils at that time felt challenged on issuing some proclamations, whether or not to do it, and if they chose not to do it, sometimes they were subjected to complaints to the Human Rights Commission if they felt that their proclamation wasn't considered fairly. So I think just broadly it was swept across not to do proclamations in municipalities. The table below outlines the practice in the South Okanagan. Osoyoos, Penticton, and Kelowna, they do issue proclamations, but they're done through the mayor or their chief administrative officer, not at the direction of council. I believe that it's the desire of this council to have some input into issuance of proclamation requests. The city of Duncan has a policy which I was able to locate that was drafted in a form that it is a directive of council. So the proclamation is brought to council for your consideration. Proclamation policies in general terms provide a process for groups and organizations to raise awareness for an upcoming event or a provincial or national day that could be recognized at a local level. We do receive periodic requests for proclamations, and I've listed some of the examples that we have received over the last year. Adoption Awareness Month, Restorative Justice Week, International Day of Older Persons, National Violence Against Women, Victims and Survivors of Crime, for example. We have provided recognition recently for drug awareness, where we illuminated Town Hall, and as well we hang the Oliver Legion flag on our pole, which may require an amendment or bring forward a flag policy too, so we can address that all in a proper form. So the policy before council speaks to those provisions. The proclamations would be brought to council. We would include it in our council report. We could post it on our website so people are aware of the proclamations made by council. We'll take any questions that you have.
Any questions? Councillor Rice?
I don't have any questions. Okay, well, else did either, so I will move the recommendation.
I'll second.
Councillor Benjamin?
I think later on in our agenda, we have a request for a proclamation already. On average, how many would you say we get a year? Even if you're averaging it out over a couple of years or something.
Half a dozen to 10, maybe?
So it's not, issuing proclamations isn't gonna become a huge administrative burden.
Through the worship, through the chair, I was thinking that if I brought them forward in the correspondence report aspect, you would have the opportunity to deal with it as a council action item. If we don't receive them in time, that may be the only hiccup, if we're not receiving notification to meet an agenda where it may be missed. If they're wanting to have photographs with the mayor, sometimes depending on what the timeline is, how quickly we receive the requests, and that they're received in the proper format.
Thank you.
Seeing no further comments, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving to correspondence, I'll pass it over to the corporate officer.
Thank you, Worship. In the correspondence report for council action, the first item is an email that was received through the District of Saanich Mayor Fred Haynes. He is writing to Premier Horgan regarding the modernization of the Motor Vehicle Act and his request to the Premier to make changes to the act to improve road safety. When I read through the letter, it speaks a lot to standardized defaulted road speeds. I think that is the modernization that the Mayor of Saanich is seeking. So the motion before council is that you may wish to send a letter to Premier Horgan in support of the requested changes outlined by the District of Saanich, or you may receive and file.
Councillor Mattis.
Thank you, Your Worship. After reading through this and the reply from the ministry, it seems to me that UBCM has dealt with this several times. This particular mayor has sent off several letters. I'm not sure that, maybe he's just not happy that they're not doing what he particularly wants. But for myself, I would suggest, or I would move that we receive and file.
Second. Further comments? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Item number 2 before council is a email received in the middle of December from the Interior Health Authority regarding sharps disposal bins and community assessment. The bins would be purchased supposedly from Interior Health Authority, but the responsibility to the municipality would be in identifying a location for the bins, securing and mounting and placement of the bins, and any associated costs. Maintenance of the bins, including emptying, removing, and replacing, and bringing the sharps container inserts to a sterile drop-off location, which would vary from community to community, depending on what's available in Oliver to drop off bins. I did advise Interior Health Authority that I'd be bringing this forward to council. We would meet that December 17th deadline that they imposed, because I feel that there would likely be some associated costs. So there are some options for a motion before council is that you may wish to participate in the sharps disposal bin program with an allocation to increase operating budgets to maintain the bin maintenance and disposal of sharps. Council may wish to decline the participation in the sharps disposal bin program with IJ, or you may wish to just receive and file.
Councillor Rice.
Thank you, Your Worship. Do we have any information on if there's been a demonstrated local need for sharps disposal in Oliver?
Not aware.
No.
Sorry,
You should be
the
good.
chair, I don't have that knowledge, sorry.
Councillor Mattis.
Yeah, it's a great program, great idea, but when I look at the things that list our responsibilities, number 1 on the list is identifying a location for the bins, which would include consultation with people who inject drugs and community agencies recommended. And without that, I think it's a great thing, but we have no idea where to put 1, 10, 20, or any of them, other than on the wall of the hospital itself. I don't know what else to say.
Councillor Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, that, we should have some information from Public Works and Parks and Rec as to if they are finding this to be a problem, or, are there outdoor locations where this is needed, or is it strictly a hospital type situation? So, I would move receive and file, but I would like to hear from Parks and Rec or Public Works to see if there's any need for this in the community, and then we could bring it forward at another time.
So receive and file and get more information.
Yeah. Receive, file, and get more information.
No, I think that would be a good idea. I know in Kelowna there was a ton of problem. It's been in the papers there, and needles on the beaches, and the parks guys were dealing with the problem regularly, finding needles when they were doing any
Oh, the cleaning up and long
situation,
term and all
yeah.
that,
Mhm.
so that's something to keep in mind when we get that information back.
It's typical of just about every program we ever go into. They're willing to start us off, but not do it long term.
I'll call the question on the motion then. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Your Worship. The fourth item before council is advising that SILGA is requesting a call for resolutions and a call for nominations for the 2020 SILGA annual general meeting. The resolutions before council is that you may want to be considering resolutions to be forwarded to the annual meeting in April and May. The deadline is February 28th, 2020. And that council may wish to consider seeking a position on the SILGA executive for the 2020 term. And again, those nominations are due February 28th, 2020.
Councilor Madison.
A little clarification, is it council, what that would, or councillors that would be seeking?
Councillors, yes, yeah, so
Councillors.
that would be an individual.
Okay.
The B, item B.
Councilor Benjamin.
I would suggest for the resolutions portion that we have, put it on a committee of the whole meeting for like, the next one even. And if before that time, any of us have resolutions that we think might be worthy of discussion, that we send them in and we can just have a 15-minute discussion on what, if any, we think are resolutions we might want to forward as a group.
Councilor Grice.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just to ask one of my more tenured colleagues here, so the SILGA process for a resolution is generally that it goes from SILGA to UBCM, so they'd be more provincial realm for resolutions.
Oh, regionally, provincially.
Yeah. And if I may also, I do intend to run for a position with SILGA. I believe that our council would have to submit our number.
I don't think so, but it probably would
You
turn.
want us to lie?
Oh, I'm kidding.
That did come.
Harsh.
Get nominated.
Do for UBCM.
Yeah. Whatever you
Not
need.
for SILGA.
It would be a nomination.
Okay.
What's that?
You could nominate her for a position.
That would be nice.
Sure, we would be happy.
So I will move the proposed motion, A and B.
Do we need to change, is that a director at large position, or what is the position at SILGA?
My intention would be for a director of large position, not for executive.
And it just says here that you'll be asked to complete a biography and submit a photo, before February 28th. If you don't do that, you can be nominated from the floor, but it probably doesn't hurt and probably is quite nice if we send a letter of, support or endorsement along with that. Should I make a motion that we send a,
It's up there.
awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm with Councillor Schwarzenberger, I don't know what we'd say, but I'm sure we can make something of it.
You guys are great.
Aren't we?
We have
It's a team.
some pictures and.
Yeah.
Funny how.
Okay, we've been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Call the question, those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Item number 5 was an email received from the United Way Southern Interior BC announcing the 2020 Youth Initiative Grant opportunity. Grants are available for youth-led projects in local communities. The deadline for applications is March 2nd, 2020. The recommendation is that council may wish to forward the grant opportunity to the South Okanagan Secondary School and possibly Oliver Parks and Rec for their consideration, or you may wish to receive and file.
Option A.
Second. Any further discussion? Call the question, those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
The last item, I believe, for action is again a correspondence from SILGA regarding the Community Excellence Award. Nominations must be received by February 1st, 2020. Council may wish to consider submission of a project that meets One of the categories, environmental sustainability, social responsibility, or economic development, where council may wish to receive and file. Last year, Town of Oliver submitted for the Food Secure Oliver Plan. Speaking with the CAO, we thought we may be able to fine tune that application and expand just specifically on the harvest hut and the edible pathway. It could be for consideration. It is on our management meeting for tomorrow to ask the other managers if there was any other items, but I don't know if you have any items for consideration.
Councillor Redmond.
I don't have any other ideas to add, but I like that idea. If there's a way to, it's not resubmitting the same thing because now it's submitting something that's actually been actioned and has a year of testing, so.
Right, in the last application I read it, and it was speaking that we were going to be doing these projects. Now that we've done them, I think that they were so well received that it may be.
And with the numbers, sorry, if I may, with the numbers of redistribution of food and those sorts of things, that I think that's a great idea.
Yep. Can we add that to the motion?
Sure.
Councillor Quinn.
Thank you. I just want to add that I wouldn't want to limit us to that, though. I think that it's still great that it's
Mhm.
discussed further.
CEO.
Thank you, Worship. Last year, we also submitted an application for the, utility, tracking that we have now. The new program that we have for, the water utility, for tracking and collecting data from all the homes, all the, metering. So we might even look at that one again because we do have, stats on what was accomplished and how many meters that we were able to deal with that were at zero consumption.
Would the Public Safety and Crime Prevention Committee qualify for that, in consideration of
Yeah.
the, reaching all the way from Oliver to Vesuvius,
Mhm.
including the regional district and our discussions around the CAS table,
Yeah.
which would have some social responsibility associated with it. That'd be something to consider submitting as well.
Okay.
Can do that for sure.
Two more items, I think.
The mover of that motion. Second, Councilor Marino. Anything else to add or comments at this point in time? Call the question then. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Oh, I thought I was getting close to.
One more.
Sorry.
Two more.
Two more. Yeah, two more.
This is a very long report.
It was, well, we haven't had a meeting for a while.
Exactly.
The December 20th, 2019 correspondence from the Oliver Radio Control Model Flying Club. They're seeking an agreement letter from council that would enable them continued flying at the Oliver Airport. They did provide a comprehensive submission to council. The Model Flying Club is currently using a small portion of land at the Oliver Airport, and with this agreement letter, it firms up their application with their regulating body, and I think it provides them with some insurance certification as well.
Councilor Matson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would make the motion that staff be directed to provide an agreement letter on behalf of council to the Oliver Radio Control Model Flying Club for use of the Oliver Airport.
Second.
It was brought up just as a follow-up to that at the Airport Advisory Committee, and everyone understood it and was totally supportive.
I think the documentation clearly outlines that they're following the process that needs to be done there, so adding that the airport was talked about at the airport committee meeting is enough for me to support the motion. I'll call the question, then those in favor, opposed, motion carries.
And wrapping up, correspondence dated December 30th, 2019 from the Vernon RCMP Day Committee requesting Council proclaim and declare February 1st, 2020 as Royal Canadian Mounted Police Appreciation Day. Proclamation is before Council. If you wish to proclaim, or you may choose to deny the request.
I think you have a title. Mounted.
Sorry?
Royal Canadian.
Oh, mounted. Oh, thank you. Mounted. Mounted. It's mounted. Let's see.
Councillor Grace.
I'll move the recommendation, or I'll move that council proclaim and declare February 1st, 2020 as Royal Canadian Mounted Police Appreciation Day.
I'll second.
Second to Councillor Schwarzenberger. Any further questions, comments, Council?
Historic day.
It's a historic day. It's good that we can proclaim this.
Yeah.
Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, and there's just some general items for your information. A letter from Minister Farnworth is a follow-up to your UBCM meetings. Correspondence from the chairs of the Shuswap Watershed Council and Okanagan Basin Water Board regarding the ongoing concern of an infestation of aquatic invasive mussels. And positive correspondence from Oliver Soya Search and Rescue, providing an update on their gaming grant application, which I believe you're aware that they were successful. They received the $100,000. They advised that they would be pleased to come and appear before council as a delegation when they've received things and they got sort of their wheels in motion to provide you an update on the building.
Councillor Madison.
I'm gonna move receipt of that correspondence and any other correspondence in the reading file.
Second.
Second, Councillor Schwarzenberger. I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving to reports, we got the item 1, Airport Manager Report for 2019.
Move receipt.
Seconder. Second, Councillor Schwarzenberger. Comments, questions, Council? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Moving to the second item, the building report for December 2019.
I'll move receipt.
Move receipt by Councillor Mattis, seconded Councillor Grice. Any further comments, questions? Call the question. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And the last item on the list is the Oliver Fire Department monthly fire report, and I think our chief operator is here to give us a verbal report.
Your Worship, Mayor, Councillors. Thanks for the opportunity to report in person. This will be a year-end report for last year. We had a busy year. We had a total of 205 calls. That is the most that the fire department here has ever had. We attended 15 structure fires, 18 brush fires, major time spent on the Eagle Bluff fire with 2 weeks of fire patrol. 9 vehicle fires, 18 ambulance assist, 28 MVIs, 57 direct alarms, and 60 miscellaneous other calls: gas leaks, wire down, assist RCMP, flood assessment, river rescues, smoke sightings, checking smoke detectors, and carbon monoxide detectors. Of our 205 calls, 89 were in town, 81 were in the rural, and 35 were in OIB. The Oliver Fire Department is made up of 33 members, including 7 officers. This past year, we added 3 new members to that number to make up for members that had previously left. On Saturday night, we presented 28 of our members with their certificates for interior firefighting qualifications. These are the qualifications set out by the provincial fire commissioner, that is set out in the firefighters playbook. It's based on National Fire Protection Association criteria 1001, which is the national criteria for all firefighters in North America. Firefighter 1 is exterior firefighters. Firefighter 2 is interior firefighters, those who are qualified to go into a structure that is still on fire and has an immediate life hazard. So 28 of our 33 have reached that qualification. 3 of those that did not are simply because they are only 1-year recruits. They started in March, they haven't completed all of their qualifications. One of our members has elected to be only exterior. Okay, he does not want to go into an interior. He's not capable of using an SCBA, but he's very well qualified to run a pump, run a truck, do all the other things that are on the outside, and he has met those qualifications. So we're very pleased with the progress that we've had. So that it's a significant certificate. It's unfortunately, because it's done in-house, we can't transfer it to the Vancouver Fire Department, but that's okay. All the same qualifications as regular full-time firefighters. We have 12 members, I wrote down 11. We have 12 members that have received their certificates for fire instructor. And all of our officers, all 7 officers, have completed and received their certificate for Fire Officer 1. We're very pleased with our response time and the number of members who respond to calls. It's a way above average for most departments of our size. We're not a paid department. We don't have people sitting in the fire hall waiting for calls, but we respond as quickly as those that do. We do not normally respond to medical calls, but we do intend to become a first, and we do not intend to become a first responder department. However, we often assist in medical calls. MVIs, we're usually the first responders on scene, and we'll look after any of the victims until the BC ambulance comes and takes over. If a vehicle is off the highway, if it's down a minor bank or in a ditch, the BC ambulance protocol is for the ambulance attendants not to go off the highway. So our members have to be qualified to go down, render medical attention as we remove them from a vehicle and bring them up to the ambulance. As I said, most of the time on an MVI, we're the first on scene, as well as helping victims. We are tasked with traffic control, as there's often a shortage of RCMP, and when they do arrive, they're busy taking the traffic statement, what happened. They're not freed up to do traffic control, so that responsibility ends up on the shoulders of the fire department. We have taken a training course. All of our members have a little certificates that says that they are emergency scene traffic control persons. This coming May the 1st to the 3rd, we will be again hosting the BC Firefighters Seminar. We anticipate over 350 firefighters attending to be instructed, and most of those instructing are our own members, as well as specialists from across the province. But our own members are tasked with doing most of the instruction during that seminar. like to encourage everyone, put it on your calendar. Please come by. We will give you a guided tour. You get to see some of the fun things that we do. Our work, our best day is somebody else's worst day. We're there, we're the helpers, we're the rescuers. We like to take time during that training session to show off some of the skills that our members have. As well as that, members of the department have been involved in 16 different community events, from parades to fundraising for community projects, as well as our Christmas truck. 16 community events outside of firefighting, outside of our own parties. Those are things that we contribute to the committee. And we're happy to do that. And we look forward to another year successful. Any questions, please?
Councillor Mattis.
Are we still getting support to Osulias regularly? Is that situation
We have,
resolved?
we have gone down to Soyuz on mutual aid calls twice.
So it's resolved itself?
They are working, as far as I know, they're working to increase their numbers of members and to increase their members showing up for calls. I know they went through a little spot, but they're coming back.
And I noticed in this month's report that there was, the very first call was only responded to by one firefighter. Was he the only person qualified to handle burnt toast?
Yes, I was. No, when we get calls like that, and that's one of those ones we call a direct alarm. If you have an alarm company that monitors your fire alarm, please make sure that you have your correct address and be able to call them back and say, oh, I just burnt the toast. When we get a direct alarm, our protocol is for at least one officer to go direct. Okay? And that officer will often determine, oh, it's burnt toast. Everybody else go home. We don't want our members leaving work unnecessarily or leaving home or family functions. Work especially, they can leave their family. Their family's just used to that. But work is very important. We have a lot of really good employers that allow our members to take time off of work. In the middle of the day, whatever it is they're doing, those employers allow our members to leave their work and come to an emergency within the town. We don't want to abuse that privilege. So we tell all of our members, if you're working on something, don't just drop it and come. Make sure that it's okay. Make sure that it is an emergency. We have a protocol that just a few members will show up when there is what we call a lift assist to the ambulance, unless it's considered code 3. If it's just to carry someone in to a house or out of the house to the ambulance, it's not a heart attack, then just 1 or 2 of our members can handle that. We don't need 20 people, and the members know that. So, yes, I was the only qualified member to determine it was burnt toast.
Well, I'll just say, thank you, Bob, for the professionalism that you bring into the Oliver Fire Department. This training is particularly impressive with having in-house training available. The cost savings associated with that are tremendous.
It is. It's we spent a few $1,000s to send 12 members out to get certified as instructors. In the past, we have spent, I believe it was $500 per person to send a firefighter to Vernon to do live fire. Now, that was $500 for the course. Then there was the travel expense to send somebody for the weekend to Vernon. And we can only send a few at a time because we still have to protect the town. Now we're able to do that at home anytime we want. And most of our members have had half a dozen or more live fire training events where we actually light something on fire. Way more than most departments. We're really fortunate. Just to do the certificate course for interior, I think it's around $5,000 to go to Justice Institute, and you have to go down there for 2 weeks. We can't do that. So other departments are struggling. They're spending a lot of money doing online courses and having instructors coming in. Just, we've taken this road and it's been very successful.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay.
Get a motion to receive the December 2019 report. Councillor Grace. Call the question, those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Worship. Not much to report. Enjoyed the break with my family. Did attend the meeting January 6th, special meeting, and then Friday, January 10th, attended Heather Wilson's retirement party. The staff did a really lovely job putting that together. Today's meeting, that's the end of my report.
Thanks, Councillor Grace. Councillor Mattis.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council workshop on January the 6th, the Oliver Tourism Association on January the 7th, Airport Advisory Committee on January the 8th, and the retirement party on the 10th.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Benjamin.
Thank you. So I have some of the same, the council workshop on Monday, January the 6th, as well as the airport committee meeting on the 8th. And on the 9th, I was at the regional district for the day. We passed first reading of the budget there, so that was passed with a 5.5% increase for the town of Oliver. And I just wanted to see what council thought, but if you'd like, I would like to request that we request that the CFO come and present this to us, and sort of break it down so that we all know what's going on. If we're up for it, I know we've had it in years past.
Sure. Absolutely.
Okay.
See you.
Thank you, Your Worship. We usually do get a letter, once they've given first reading to the bylaw for him to start doing he goes to all the municipalities now.
Okay, a bunch of communities already have their dates scheduled and we didn't, so I thought, I'm just gonna make sure we want it and then we'll ask them.
Yeah, haven't heard from him yet, so I'll touch it.
They're eager beavers.
Well, I know that they've been busy in negotiations too, so he's been busy.
That's it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Benjamin. Councillor Schwarzenberg.
Thank you, Your Worship. Monday, January 6th, I attended the council workshop with the rest of council. Tuesday the 7th, with Councillor Mattis, I attended the Oliver Tourism Association meeting. And Friday, with most of the rest of council, I attended the Deputy Finance Officer's retirement party.
Thanks, Councillor Schwarzenberg. January 6th, it was also the council workshop. January 8th, Heritage Committee meeting. January 10th, Friday, Heather Wilson's retirement event at the Devils Theatre. And January 11th, the Firemen's Annual Dinner and Dance. Upcoming meetings, Monday, January 27th, regular open council meeting. January 28th, 29th, we have our budget deliberations. And the acting mayor scheduled for February 2020 is Councillor Schwarzenberg. George, you got any questions?
Been too long, I've forgotten what I was gonna ask.
That happens.
Then I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.